Hey everybody.
Hey everybody.
Welcome to the vlog. We're sorry we missed last week. We were tired.
Doing a lot of things.
Yeah, we're very busy. So we're in the new house. We don't have a place set up yet, but we're going to knock out a bunch of vlogs right now.
Yep. I'm wearing a hat to cut down the glare from my white skin.
She's so white. It just makes a weird ghost effect.
So you're going to see the next few vlogs are going to be the exact same ones because we're going to do them all right now.
Yeah, so we're
And
not
just go up later.
weird people that wear the same clothes every Saturday.
Yeah, no. So we're gonna try to do theme weeks again because we remember we used to do that with vlogs and it was a lot of fun. So our first one is going to be general theme is questions about gods and pantheons. So here goes. First question.
The theme is general.
Yes, it's a general theme. That's a real thing.
That sounds dumb.
I'm a graduate student. He is not. All right, so first question. What do you think of a game where Scions deal with a number of NPCs in the world bringing their pantheons back to prominence, all while they are secretly guarding Zeus's successor? So the idea here is that there's a bunch of different pantheons that want to rise to power, so they're trying to groom the guy who's going to overthrow Zeus.
Is that what it says?
Yes. Successors in quotes.
But what about the other pantheons?
They're hiding the kid.
But they're also bringing their own... I don't know. It sounds fine.
They want to come back to prominence. It's implied that they're hiding the kid to dethrone Zeus because he's somehow stopping them from being as prominent. I think maybe the idea is that because Greek mythology is more well known, maybe Zeus is somehow preventing other pantheons from getting airtime in the world or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it sounds fine. Maybe a little kerfuffled.
It's a little bit... It's got a little too heavy a flavor for me of the Greeks being more powerful than everyone else, which they're not. I mean, they're very powerful, but you can't be like,
right.
oh, the Pesajai can't do anything. The Pesajai, they hold their old name.
Aha.
The Egyptians can't do anything because the Greeks are there. Like, that's just not true.
Yeah.
I think it's likely that there are several gods in other pantheons who would probably have an interest in seeing Zeus go away because they don't like him or he interferes with their plans or whatever. But it's not going to be a universal thing. There are probably also people that like Zeus and don't want him to get overthrown.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, go for it. Sounds like a good plot seed. Sounds like a good NPC group for PCs to interact with and all that stuff.
Yeah. Sounds like a story that you could do.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't hate it.
But he doesn't hate it. Okay. Next question is, why does Hades have epic stamina associated?
Okay. Well, the answer to this question led us to a different problem.
Yes. So the answer is... We gave Hades epic stamina because his earliest myth is that he was swallowed by his father Cronus, survived in his stomach, and was vomited back up alive again. And Poseidon also has epic stamina for the same reason. But we realized in doing that for some reason we had not given Hera epic stamina because she also went through that process. And probably just because we did their associations on different days and we forgot about it.
Within the ultimate complication is that would that make Demeter have three things?
Yeah, if we then say, okay, well, Demeter would have stamina, and she'd have fertility, and she would have what we're talking appearance or mystery. So she probably that catapults her up into playable.
But we don't know. So once we went through all that, instead of saying, well, let's just give them all stamina now, we said maybe we should relook at that and decide like living in someone. I mean, it's a pretty cool stamina myth. What I think happened is I have this big bullshit system for how many times someone has to do something. And so I assume both him and Poseidon have the swallowing and then one other myth where they do something staminous. Or we have some explanation about them being very stamina-ness.
I can't think of any. I don't think
it could be,
does anything else.
It could be that their environs are so much different from Olympus that was like they live in shitty places. Not necessarily shitty places.
I see Hera having one. Like, there's that time Zeus hung up from the ceiling for a week or whatever.
Sure.
But anyway, so we weren't sure. So if in
conclusion, we will never get to this.
We will get to it.
But we probably should go back and look at things.
But so if you're a storyteller and you're wondering why we gave him that, that's the reason. And so if you agree and you say, oh, that's a reason to have stamina, give it to all three of them. If you don't, then don't give it to any of them. Alrighty, next question. I am intrigued by the Orisha. It's crazy how everyone is married to everyone. How does that really work? Are they a big happy family or what? No, they're horrible people. They hate each other.
No.
So everyone is married to everyone. The thing about the Orisha is that they are all very passionate.
It's not a commune. They hate their wives. Like everyone hates everyone.
Everyone hates everyone because they are super passionate. So when they like somebody all the way, and then when they get mad at somebody, that's to the death. Mm-hmm. You can tell, they're a courage, vengeance, psychopath pantheon. They they're out of control. So, like, everyone is married to everyone. Part of that has to do with the Orisha tendency to swap genders, swap shapes, do different stuff, which means that they often, like, form new relationships with new people depending on what phase they're in. There's a lot of, because they're crazy people, there's a lot of one person fighting with another person over his wives, or the wives fighting among themselves, and that leads to a bunch of weird marriage alliances that... Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're not like a big happy family. You're definitely not going to go to an Orisha reunion and everyone's going to be pleased with each other.
No, I think everyone hates each other, right?
But they also love each other. But they hate each other.
Everyone hates each other.
Yeah, pretty much. Like Shango and Ogun hate each other, and then Shango hates his wives, and his wives hate each other, and the wives hate Ogun, and Ogun marries some of the wives. And there's the bunch of dudes that sometimes turn into ladies and marry each other, but then they get mad at each other and have a feud.
Yeah, so I hope this doesn't make you not intrigued by them.
No, they're super interesting and fun, but they don't they're...
My imagining of who you are, anonymous person, is someone that like thinks polyamory is a cool thing. And so you're like, oh, here's this cool like pantheon of gods that does polyamory. And I don't want to burst your bubble if that's the case, and like be like, no, it doesn't work. It's horrible.
Well, they do polygyny. You can have multiple wives. That's usually not an issue. It's just that there's going to be fights between the wives. And there's going to be fights between people that want.
And
to
you're probably not going to love them all, right?
And sometimes you're going to hate it. Sometimes you're going to be Shango and you're going to murder half your wives, and then you're going to feel kind of shitty, but you're just going to go out and get new wives. So, yeah. So I mean, they're super interesting, but they have vengeance, and it definitely shows. So.
End question.
All right, next one. I'm STing a game, and my Scions of Hel, Hades, and Odin are getting to God soon, and I need some ideas on how to make their rise to God memorable.
Cool. That's congratulations.
Yep, it's hard to get there.
It's hard to do, and it's hard to do it. 3 people stories are hard.
Yep, and this is 2 different pantheons. It's hard to Greek and Norse. They don't want to do this.
So good job there. Congratulations. Memorable. What I did was every player over the course when they became God, which happened at different times. Which I guess I recommend. It was better.
It gives them more of a spotlight moment to be like, I'm becoming a god. Not everyone's becoming god. It's more special for them.
And then when that happened, I gave each of them their own story. Like, not their own story, their own game session. It was like, 3 to 6 hours where I just sat down with that person. And I basically just set up some stuff where during their apotheosis, things go right. Like, I picked a couple problems they had accrued that were like beyond their ability to deal with, and I was like, okay, well, these gods that are supporting you or your friends or they're going to help you succeed here. And so like, oh, here they come, and Sangria wanted to kill. So
Sangria killed Camazotz. That's what she did.
No, she didn't. That's wrong.
Well, she kind of did.
Not for her god story. She did, but not for her god story.
Well, I think of a different time that she had a tussle with Camazotz.
Your god story was going to get Baldur.
That also happened.
The Camazotz thing was later when you got that level of Itzel, right?
No, because Itzel didn't have anything to do with it.
I don't remember.
But anyway, yes. We chose something that from that character's story that was like a big outstanding loose end or something that they really felt strongly about. And then they got a session where it was just about that thing and they succeeded at it.
Yeah. I tried to tie it a little into some other character stuff, like Sangria partially like saved Baldur because it was her father-in-law, but it wasn't her main goal, but doing that made everything else a lot easier for her. So even if it wasn't her direct goal, the consequences of it were a goal that she would want to have done.
Exactly. Or like Woody wanted to be god of like protecting the frozen north, and so his was all about like all the gods of the frozen north kind of got together and they together like blocked a portal to Niflheim and stopped Ymir's encroachment and a bunch of stuff. So they were just one-on-one games, but a lot of times the other players would come just to spectate because they wanted to see it happen, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. So hopefully those are some cool ideas.
Yeah. Tailor it to the player and make it something that's really special. Like they're going to feel good about this. Because they made it to God. It should be awesome and fun for them.
Yeah. Like something that just like some cool stuff happens. They get, make it just all about them, all the things they want. Like, I don't know how your stories normally are, but for the most part, my players just get shit on. The characters get shit on over and over and over again. So I made the Apotheosis God story, all winning all the time. You do some rolls, but everything works out for you. This is your one moment of like awesomeness and success.
The players don't get shit on. We buy them soda and hug them.
Yes.
But the characters have a rough time. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, next question. My Scion of Izanagi is finding himself attracted to Amaterasu. He blames his attraction on being named the god of the moon after Tsuki-Yomi died. Is this argument valid? Should he be disgusted with himself for being attracted to his sister? And does she count as his full or half sister since Izanagi created her and her brothers?
Question too long. Break into parts.
First of all,
go backwards.
She is his sister.
Yes.
That is real. It doesn't matter that he made her with his eyeball instead of his penis. She's his full daughter. You're her full brother. You don't have the same mother, so I guess you can call it half sister, half sibling. But it doesn't really make any difference. Like, they're not going to say, oh, it's half sibling, that's better.
Half sibling, sex time.
No. Should he be disgusted for being attracted to a sister? Depends.
No, I'm not that's a morality thing. Culturally speaking, for the Japanese, yes.
Especially since you are theoretically a modern day person, so incest is something that like almost all cultures are like, that's not okay. You can't do that. There is sibling incest in Japanese myth, and it's not stigmatized there, but that's also something from very, very long ago in Japanese culture, and actually there's much later a lot of apologism that goes with that. Like, if you read some of the commentaries on the Kojiki, you'll have Japanese writers from several centuries ago talking about the fact that there's sibling incest and saying things like, that's not okay, we don't support that. They had to do that because they were the only people that existed, but it's not cool, don't do it.
For those who don't know, apologism is when a later scholar writes kind of about the other things, or rewrites some of the things to then pass out some of the myths to change the old stories into a more modern view, or to just the view of that one person. Like, right. Can kind of change a lot of stuff. In
this case, when Buddhism started coming to Japan, incest got super, super stigmatized against because Buddhism was very much not cool with it. And so a lot of traditional Shinto stuff that had incest, scholars started writing things about why there was incest in it, how that was okay for them but not okay anymore, and that sort of thing. So as a modern person coming from that background, your sign's going to be not. He's going to have some conflicts going on there. That's going to be weird for him. Mm-hmm. It's not weird that he's attracted to Amaterasu. She's super hot. But it is going to be kind of weird. And depending on where his members of the pantheon fall on that whole tree of, like, is incest okay, is it not okay, they may or may not be cool with it too. Some of them may think you're being horrible, especially the Buddhist gods like Hachiman or Orisha. They're probably going to think that's not cool at all. But some of the older ones, like, your father may be okay with it. He married his sister.
But should the player or the character feel bad? I don't know. That's completely up to the player or character.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on you, your background, what you would have thought about it before this time, how you're going to reconcile it. We can't really give you guidance on that. We can just tell you, think about the things around you and figure it out.
Next part of the
question. He's blaming his attraction on being the moon god. Is that a valid argument? Because she was married to the previous moon god, who was also her brother.
You don't really blame your attraction. It sounds like he's giving an excuse for it.
It definitely sounds like rationalization. Like, well, she was married to her other brother, who was a moon god, so it's okay, right?
But I can't tell if it's character rationalization or the player feels like that is something that has to happen, or it happened to him and he's trying to explain it to either other people, or it's a weird thing.
I will say that unless your storyteller gave you some reason to think so, being the moon god does not automatically mean that you are married to her. That's a thing that should be happening. Right, no. It's not going to suddenly make you attracted to her because.
But she's super hot, right?
Yeah, no, she's an ultimate appearance lady.
Right. So that's probably why you're attracted to her.
Yeah,
she's super hot.
And when there are people that have incest is not okay, that is an issue. Like, that is one of the reasons Zeus always keeps Aphrodite married, because you can't have that around.
Yeah,
it's not okay.
Not okay. All right. I feel like there's a last part. There's a first question in the.
No, that was it. Those 3 questions. You can read it if you want. I can count to 3.
The first is a statement.
Yes.
Very good.
All right. Next one. I noticed in your Eastern Promises and Gangs of New York games, you only allow your PCs to choose from 4 pantheons that have some level of cultural interaction. I'm wondering if any of the other major pantheons on your site have that kind of thing going on, like, for example, the Celtic pantheons.
The last part doesn't make any sense.
I think he's asking, are there other sets of pantheons that are good sets to play together like that have that kind of cultural interaction, so they're good to play together?
Okay.
And I mean, yes.
I mean, I think there's lots of groups, that are good to play together.
It's a lot of overlap. Your Celtic pantheons is a good example. Our Strawberry Fields game was actually almost all, it was either Tuatha or Nemeton-Devos. Yeah. And I would throw the Aesir in there too. They had a lot of overlap with the Tuatha you could play together.
But yeah, I mean, I write a story first, or at least the bare bones for a story, before I let them pick pantheons, and kind of look at the themes I want to explore and the things I want to have people deal with. So Eastern Promises is built around pantheons that have order. I wanted to explore Scions dealing with what it's like to not only live in a time period where so many countries around had so many different laws and different rules, but world traveling and constantly changing that, while also having something internally that makes you follow the rules.
Yeah, it's a lot of like inner soul searching because we have the devas or the deva Scions who are not happy about having to bow to British imperialism, but that's the law, and so they have to do I fight my order? Do I decide it's not okay? I'm gonna or do I deal with it because that's the way things are now?
Making just it constantly sets them in making very hard choices more often, and specifically about I thought this time period order fit really well, like trying to figure out all the imperialism and all the so many different countries taking over so many other countries, and when the laws change because of that, and how that works exactly. Yeah. Also, slavery still being around, and how order works with slavery. Yeah,
those pantheons are also specifically intended to work with with British imperialism because Egypt is arguing with Britain over the Suez Canal right now. India is under the British Raj still. Persia is sandwiched between all of this British territory, and it's like the only free state in that area, kind of.
So when you say, do other groups work like that? I mean, if you want to explore a virtue, you can just pick all the groups that have that virtue. The other thing is they're not allowed to switch out that virtue. No one can switch out order. It's like that one's got to stick. You can do whatever else you want.
Yeah, so I would say, another one would be to play Deva, Yazada, Shen, Arakami.
And do
kind of
Harmony?
The Eastern Bloc. No, they don't all have Harmony, but like...
okay, you're saying something different then.
I'm trying to... I'm thinking... Because there's more cultural crossovers than just the virtues. Like, there may be people next to each other that have really good cultural
Right, well, the question was asking about those ones in particular, and it wasn't a culture thing.
Well, it is for them, because they don't know about your virtue system. They just assumed that it was because of cultural interaction.
Right, and I'm telling them it's not.
Or, like, what's a good one? I'm thinking of, like, Bogovi and Yazada, because they have a lot of stuff going on.
You can do Bogovi, Yazada, Aesir, Dodecathian.
Yeah, Bogovi, Yazada, Aesir, Deoi have a lot of... What is it they've got in common? Like, they've got... So they have, like, 3 and 3 a bunch of places there. I'm not sure if they all 4 have one, though.
Well, I mean, they're some of the few that actually... I mean, those are the 3 places the Bogovi have actual stories about being.
Yeah, like the Bogovi specifically interact with those, because the Bogovi are kind of in this crossroads in the middle of
Europe.
Europe.
You can cut up continents and do it however you want, too. Like, like you could have an Africa, Egypt,
There's
Babylon story.
Don't have anything.
You can just do Africa. You could do like
a lot of Africa actually. You can be like a lot of Africa is united by, for example, harmony. Like the Orisha and the Netcher are nothing like one another, but they both believe in harmony. So
I mean, you could do a story about like all the places Rome conquered and like all the pantheons that live in that area. You can do the same thing with like the Mongol horde.
Exactly.
You can do a lot of interesting things with like the history and conquering, and it depends when you play in history.
Yeah, it depends on your time setting too. Like the thing we're doing right now in Eastern Promises wouldn't work in the modern day, just because British Raj isn't a thing right now anymore. But the Gangs of New York has a similar setup, but for different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, they instead of going with a virtue, I went with I really wanted to do there's a whole meta plot about fighting over the Mediterranean that they don't know about at all, and so that's there. So they're Mediterranean spanning kind of groups.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty.
So there's lots and lots of stuff you can do. I think let your imagination run wild, but find a rule and stick to it, and that'll help you out.
It's really helpful to say we're going to do several pantheons because it helps the storyteller be able to plan better. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can play games where everybody can play anything, but it's harder to write a coherent meta plot that way.
Yep.
Alrighty. In your games, when and how did the gods learn that the Titans escaped? Was there a big explosion in the underworld, or did they simply slip out unnoticed until someone checked and saw that they had flown the coop? It's the same as the default setting, I think, in our games, right?
I mean, no, it's very different because for every game I make it different.
Actually, I mean, let's talk about just the line where we know the Titans escaped, which is the regular Better Next Time Skeins of Fate timeline.
Right.
And that timeline is the same as in the books, correct?
Yes.
There was basically a big explosion because they ripped Tartarus open and damaged all the underworlds that were attached to it. It was a very obvious thing. Like, everyone in the Death Realms knew immediately, and then Titans poured out, so then it was pretty obvious to everyone.
People weren't ready for it. Titans were like, bow, bow, bow.
It was a jailbreak. It was not subtle, but it was also something that they thought was never, ever going to happen, so no one was ready. Mm-hmm. Except maybe some gods of prophecy who, for one reason or another, were being dicks. The other games, we don't necessarily treat Titans the same way, and a lot of that we can't tell you because players don't know about.
Mm-hmm. Players like it.
Yeah, but I know it's there. I just don't know where it is.
But yeah, so I can't reveal any of that, but stuff's happening.
I can't think of too many things where they would just, like, sneak out and no one would know. Like, Titans are by nature so present and they affect things so much just by being there, even if they're not trying to do anything, that it would be really difficult to have the Titans just like sneak out en masse and no
Well,
one
because the Titan realms would kind of like open once they were in. Yeah, I think sneaking, at least en masse, it would be impossible.
Yeah, one or two of them might have done that, especially if they're like sneaky by nature. But I mean, Surtur's not sneaking anywhere. He's fucking busting his way out. Alrighty.
This is going too long. What's next?
The Aztecs have a god of homosexuality, despite their obvious dislike of the concept. How does the rest of the pantheon treat him?
He's also the god of like other things they dislike and are illegal.
Okay, I need to do an Aztec like aside, so humor me for a second. We do treat Xochipilli as the Aztec god of homosexuality, and he is generally considered to be that, but was actually not 100% certain that that's what he was. It's based on some mentions in ancient Aztec literature where, like, for example, some dudes will get in trouble for homosexuality and somebody will say something to them like, oh, what do you think you're doing? It's not time for Xochipilli's rights right now. And so we would assume, therefore, that his rights have something to do with homosexuality and therefore he's the patron god of it. But we don't actually have anything that says he's the patron god of that. We know he's the patron god of, like, mushrooms. And we know he's the patron god of flowers and prettiness and stuff.
Mushrooms that you eat to get high.
That you eat to get high and experience visions. Because that's the only kind of mushrooms that he's going to be eating. And all the statues of him are him, like, obviously mushroom tranced out of his mind. But so, generally accepted to be a god of homosexuality. But there's still some question about that and what it means and whether it's something that he is about or that just his cult was about or whether his cult was really about it or this is some weird insult someone else is using. Hard to tell. But anyway, we do treat him that way because in the absence of evidence, we might as well. And they are dicks to him.
Yes.
You know, nobody likes the guy that does the thing they tell him not to do. Just the same way that they're dicks to Quetzalcoatl because he did not do the job they told him to do, and now he has to live on the moon. Xochipilli is the bane of his existence. He hides from her because they are not compatible even slightly. In our games, he tends to actually go hide in the fertility Titan realm a lot of the time so that they don't bother him. Which, of course, doesn't make them like him anymore because then he looks like a Titan sympathizer.
Titan sympathizer.
Yeah.
Like Jeff.
That guy. So anyway, he's not treated well. He could be treated better, but it would be hard to... Like, you have to either convince the Aztecs that he's okay in spite of being homosexual, or you have to convince them that being homosexual is okay, which can be really difficult because you're trying to overcome centuries and centuries of prejudice there.
Millennium.
Or you have to convince him to not be homosexual or not to act like he's homosexual, and he's probably not going to do that, and, you know, he's going to keep being himself, so... It's likely they're going to continue being assholes to him.
Yep.
Probably forever. There's also a lot of theory that he may be an imported god. He may have been originally Toltec or Mixtec in origin, and so he was absorbed into the pantheon, but he's not a native Aztec god, which would explain why he's god of something that is kind of foreign to them, which does not make him treat him any better, again. So.
That's it.
The Norse versus the Bogovi.
Too many questions.
Let's say Loki tricked Thor and Perun into a room together. What would happen? Would it be a spectacular light show or lots of drinking or something else?
Probably drink some beers. Have fun.
These are two dudes with charisma. They probably would find each other awesome.
Yeah.
Like, they definitely would have had a massive fight if they had actually gotten to each other on the battlefield. But if they're not in the mood for fighting right now, like no one's attacking each other.
Later, like, Perrin wanted to fight him because Thor was, like, killing his people.
Yeah. If Thor's not doing that right now, they'll probably have a beer and get real drunk and sing some songs and harass some women. Like, they will just do big, fat Thunder God stuff.
Yeah.
They both have a shit ton of charisma, so they need a good reason to not want to just like each other and hang out.
Yeah.
And then last question. Power and responsibility go hand in hand, and with every great decision comes regret. What
the fuck kind of prefaces that?
What do the gods regret?
Oh, Jesus. What? Person. This slipped by. I definitely did not.
It was the last one that I read you. You stopped listening to me.
I did not let this one go. Okay. I don't... What do they regret? There's like 150 gods on the site right now. Like...
Yeah, they're people. They regret the things that went poorly for them. You know?
Yeah.
Hode regrets losing Nana.
Rarely do they regret doing something to someone else. More likely, they regret when something went bad for them.
Yeah, they probably regret things that went poorly for them. They lost something, someone they care about got hurt, they got ousted from power. Indra probably severely regrets killing Vritra for this ungrateful pantheon and then put vaginas all over his body, but that's the way it is now. They probably don't regret, like, smiting someone who tried to usurp their throne, because fuck that guy. Unless a myth specifically says, and then he regretted it. Right. And then you know he did. But...
I don't think anything, really.
I mean, they all have different personalities. There's never a big blanket idea.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, there are some gods who feel sympathetic toward their Titan parents and probably regret having to lock them up. And regret them, but, you know,
not regret doing it. Regret
the need to do it.
Yeah, regret having to do it.
Yeah, and, you know, some of them probably regret the person they married, like Hephaestus, because that was not worth it.
Worth it.
So, you know, it really is going to depend on the individuals.
Thinks it's worth it.
I mean, at certain moments, he probably thinks it's worth it.
Yeah, but otherwise, that's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, so it really depends on the individual. Like,
rewrite it and just put one God.
We will tell you what.
And then we can answer that.
One God did or did not regret.
But otherwise, it's way too.
Okay, that is all our questions today about gods and
That's
pantheons.
it. We will see you next week with what's next week.
Next week, we'll be talking about Boom's next powers.
Boom. You're welcome.
We will see you then.
You're welcome.